Theodore. He's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do. Pushing and a pulling in the great big harbor, in the great big world is so much fun. So many brand new things to discover. Waking with the sun, gotta get the job done. Oh, Theodore and Emily, Bodak, Hank and George, and the harbor master too.
It was a beautiful, clear morning in the Big Harbor. Theodore and Emily were up bright and early, exploring before the work meeting. The ocean stretched out from Willie's Island as far as the tugs could see. "It must be great to be out on the ocean on a day like this," said Theodore, who always dreamed of the day he would be able to go out on the ocean by himself. It's nice to be on the ocean," agreed Emily. "But the best part is when you sail into new harbors and meet new ships for the first time." "Even better than being on the ocean?" said Theodore. "Oh, yes," replied Emily, "because I get to ask ships all kinds of questions about where they live. And sometimes I even learn interesting new words in their language."
Well, that's nice to know. Kind of curious as to what places Emily's been to, other than France, Spain, and Africa that's already been mentioned. Wish they would have explained that a little more. Whatever. As the tugs make their way back to the dock, they return to hear some exciting news from the dispatcher. Wonder what this is all about.
"Today, we have a very special guest in our harbor. His name is Gregor, and he is a Russian fishing trawler. George brought him in late last night." Well, the tugs could see that George was still asleep. "Gregor has a broken propeller," the dispatcher continued. "He's come to our harbor to get a new one." I've never met a ship who came all the way from Russia before," Emily thought to herself with a big smile. And all the tugs were very excited about their special visitor. "Gregor will be leaving to join his fishing friends as soon as George wakes up and brings him his new propeller. Bodak, you need to give Gregor a safety inspection before he goes." "But I'm supposed to be inspecting anchors on all the ships today." "Oh, yes," said the dispatcher. "Emily, you will take over Bodak's job. You will inspect anchors on all the ships." Emily tooted twice to say yes, but inside, she began to worry. "All the anchors on all the ships," she thought. "But that will take all day. How will I ever get to meet Gregor?"
Ooh, a Russian fishing trawler? Sounds pretty interesting. Hey, Emily's excited at least. Until her job kinda gets in the way. So as she heads off, Emily admits that she's never been to Russia and has always wanted to. Funny, I thought she said she'd been everywhere. What, are you lying now, Emily? That's lovely. Well, more than anything, she wants the chance to meet Gregor. But first things first, time to check those anchors on all the ships. This'll be fun.
"Why are you inspecting anchors today, anyway? I thought this was Bodak's job." "Oh, well, Bodak is checking a Russian fishing trawler who has a broken propeller," replied Emily. "A Russian fishing trawler," said Catherine. "Now, I've never met a Russian ship before." "Is that so?" said Emily. "What are Russian ships like?" said Catherine. "Are they the same as me?" "I don't know, Catherine," replied Emily. "I've never met a Russian ship before either, and I'd really like to." "I would really like to meet him too," said Catherine. Well, by now, it looked like Catherine's anchor had finally finished going up. "Good," said Emily. Goodbye. Everything seems to be in working order, so I guess I'll just be going. Emily," it was Catherine again. "Bodak promised to get my lifeboat. Now it's being painted at the repair yards. Can you get it for me?" "Okay," agreed Emily. I'll be right back."
Is it me, or did this part just drag? Oh, I think I almost fell asleep. I can kind of understand why Emily wouldn't want to be bothered with a job like this. And if that wasn't bad enough, she now has to get Catherine's lifeboat. Time just keeps growing short for Emily to get her chance, it looks like. So she grabs the lifeboat, and wouldn't you know it, someone else decides to bug her.
Emily! Emily! It was Philip and Phil. Fillmore, the Ferry twins.
We hear you're inspecting anchors today,
Called Philip.
and we were wondering
Fillmore continued.
if you could inspect our anchors too.
The Ferry twins, too? Groaned Emily. Oh, no. I'll never get to meet Gregor,
We also see there's a Russian ship in the harbor.
said Philip.
Did you ask him
Said Fillmore.
if Russian ferries have anchors?
No, replied Emily. I haven't had a chance to meet him yet. Look, I'll be back to look at your anchors. Goodbye.
Now the ferries are just added to the list of things she needs to do. And yet she still needs to give Catherine her lifeboat and check all the anchors. That's a job too many if you ask me. But Emily agrees and continues on her way. Unfortunately, she's in so much of a hurry that she almost ran into Bedford.
I'm sorry, Bedford, puffed Emily. I was going too fast and I wasn't looking. I'm trying to get my work done so that I can meet Gregor. I saw him, said Bedford. I saw George bring him into the harbor last night. Gregor looks really interesting. I've always wondered what Russian buoys are like. Could you ask him if they have bells or whistles? Okay, sure, said Emily. I guess I'll never get a chance to meet Gregor, said Bedford sadly. I never get to go anywhere. Oops, time to ring my bell. Time for me to get this lifeboat to Catherine, said Emily. Emily? Yes, Bedford, said Emily. Look, I'm really in a hurry. I was just wondering, said Bedford. What lifeboat? The one that's on my deck, said Emily. And then she saw the lifeboat drifting away from her on the tide. Oh no, cried Emily. It must have fallen off when I made that fast turn around you.
Gee whiz, Emily just can't catch a break. What else can go wrong for her? Well, to make matters worse, she now had to fetch the lifeboat, and George was finally awake, about to bring Gregor his new propeller. Of course, that meant he would be leaving soon. And then Emily lost her
Emily! It was Theodore pulling a container ship with Hank. Did you meet Gregor? Said Theodore. Did he tell you any Russian words? Added Hank. A big cloud of smoke shot from Emily's stack. Well, that was just one question too many about Gregor. Niet! Niet, 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 shouted Emily. That is the only Russian word I know, and it means no. No, I have not met Gregor, and I will probably never meet Gregor. I have to take this lifeboat to Catherine, and then I have to inspect all the rest of the anchors on all the ships in the whole harbor.
I would not want to be her right now. I mean, no one else really got the chance between their jobs, and you don't see them freaking out. But leave it to Theodore to give Emily a very smart idea. She then figures out how she can get her work done, and everyone has the chance to meet Gregor.
Theodore, Hank, called Emily. I would like you to meet Gregor. How do you do, Gregor? They replied, very surprised to be meeting the Russian ship.
How do you do? Replied Gregor. I'm very pleased to meet you too.
All day, all I could think of was how to finish my work and still meet Gregor, said Emily. And everybody else in the harbor wanted to meet him too. But no one could, said Hank. We were all too busy, said Theodore. But then, Theodore, you said you wished you could bring the ship you were moving over to meet Gregor. Right, said Theodore slowly. So, continued Emily, I decided that since everyone couldn't go over and meet Gregor, I would bring Gregor over to meet everyone, while I inspect anchors. Emily, said Theodore, you are the smartest tugboat I know.
Da, da,
Said Gregor. Well, that means yes, yes in Russian, laughed Emily. Gregor just taught me that. Well, all the tugs began to laugh, and they all set off with the Russian ship to meet everyone here in the Big Harbour. First, said Emily to Gregor, there's a very special buoy named Bedford, and he'd really like to meet you.
And that concludes Emily the Vigorous. I don't know how to feel about this episode. Most of the time I found it very hard to pay attention to what was going on, and most of it just seemed to drag out. What I think threw me off was the title. You'd think this would have been some sort of backstory or whatever to how Emily got her V-word. I just don't really see how this works. And there's not much to go on about Gregor since we only hear him speak towards the end. Not like we're gonna see him ever again. Although I will admit, kudos to Denny for pulling off a pretty good Russian accent. Music again, simple as always, and we had no set focus on certain locations in the harbor. Overall, I can honestly say that this episode is just boring. Up next is Theodore's Day Off.